Ayaka might just be the second best 5-star DPS in the game. Now don't get too excited because that is not a very high expectation. Because well, the number one best 5-star DPS is Ganyu, and then we have basically everyone else who is not the number one. So being the second best just means she is above or equal to the others. As always, pre-release analysis video contain leaked data, or the video could just be straight up very inaccurate. My goal when it comes to these kind of video is to get your expectation low and don't overhype on the characters so that you don't FOMO pull on day one and get disappointed when the character is not good. To get started, Ayaka is going to be a perma-free style DPS similar to Ganyu or to some extent Kaya. She performs also very well and comparable to Ganyu, which is a very good thing. However, it does come with several limitations like 80 energy cost on her burst, as well as a lot of damage being loaded in her burst like Eula is. Overall, she is 3 out of 5 for me, and other balanced character created by MiHoYo, losing just to Ganyu, however in the similar tier of xiao or hutao. I do think she is better than those two, which is why I put her the second best 5-star DPS there is, because the only character that she loses to is Ganyu. I don't think this is too unexpected for most people. MiHoYo is surprisingly very good at making balanced character from what we have seen, and seems like the trend of making every character viable and balanced is going to continue of Ayaka. So I don't think it come out as a surprise that people think Ayaka is not going to be balanced. A lot of you might be wondering, oh, why don't you try Melt Ayaka? And the answer is because Melt Ayaka is just not going to really work and it's not going to be good because of the way Ayaka attacks. In her normal attack, you can see that her attack is split between multiple components. For example, in the 4th hit, it's split into 3 parts, as well as more importantly is that her charge attack is also split into 3 parts. And this is a very bad thing when it comes to melting because of something called the internal cooldown, which means you cannot melt all 3 attacks no matter what. You'll only be able to melt 1 out of 3. So essentially, you're only melting 33% of your damage, and that is really bad for melting. The same also apply with Ayaka's elemental burst. So the way her elemental burst works is that it lasts 5 seconds and it will do damage once every 0.25 seconds. The way we know that is because we just unpacked the game and looked at the code. And because of that, it's gonna do damage 20 times in total, and I can almost guarantee you that that's gonna come with, once again, internal cooldown or ICD. Which means out of 20, you will only be able to melt 7 hits, which is once again only 33% of the damage is being melted. And so that is why Ayaka is not gonna work with melt. It's not gonna work even if you have like a super pyro support like Shangling or maybe a pyro infusion VENTI ult. Starting off with base stat of Ayaka, there's actually nothing to look at, very in line with everyone. She get crit damage ascension just like almost everyone else. Like every new character nowadays get either crit rate or crit damage, so there's nothing to look at, very in line here. Starting off with her normal attack string have like lower ratio than Kaya surprisingly, but the same amount of charge attack ratio as Keqing, which is a good thing because Keqing charge attack ratio is known to be very high. Now interestingly enough is that she ended up doing the same amount of damage as Kaya, because even though Kaya has higher ratio, Kaya also have about like 100 lower base attack to begin with. So this is a very good sign for Ayaka because Kaya is known to be a very good normal attacker and Keqing is known to be a very good charge attacker. Charge attack does have a stamina cost of 20, which is 5 lower than Keqing, but nonetheless this might mean that she might face some stamina issues with charge attack, which is an indicator of she should be doing something like a 1-2-3 attack into a charge attack or a 1-2-3-4 attack into a charge attack, similar to how Keqing should be played nowadays. Interestingly enough is that Ayaka charge attack is actually semi-range, which potentially might mean that you can hit enemy in VENTI's elemental burst, similar to Kazuha's normal attack. Now, Ayaka's normal and charge attack is actually going to do more damage than Kaya's and Keqing due to one of her talent, which increase your normal and charge attack damage by 30% after casting your elemental skill. Overall, this is a really good amount of damage and it's definitely a good thing about Ayaka. Ayaka also have a special dash, exactly the same as Mona, but what's interesting about Ayaka's dash is that once you come out of the dash, it will infuse your sword with cryo for 5 seconds. And that is the primary method, and actually is the only method of getting your sword to be infused with cryo, so you're gonna have to dash in and out to make sure that maintain you that cryo infusion onto your sword. A common question people have is that, oh, wouldn't that cost you a lot of stamina? And the answer is not really, because when you pop back out, it will regenerate you 10 stamina. So if you just tap your dash, then you actually cost no stamina at all. Ayaka's elemental skill is just a quick summon of ice, so it's very simple, nothing special here. Her elemental skill have a 10-second cooldown, which in my opinion is kind of awkward because the buff you get only lasts for 6 and the infusion you get from your dash only lasts for 5. And to me, this is like a really awkward and real point about Ayaka. It's like the rotation around Ayaka is going to be very weird. You have a buff that lasts for 6, so you want to do damage in that 6 seconds, but then you know your elemental skill is 10-second cooldown. So what do you do in the remaining 4 seconds then? It's really awkward to me. Given that Keqing also have a 5-second infusion and Keqing can do about 3 to 4 charge attack within that 5 seconds, we can also expect Ayaka to be able to do around 3 charge attack combo within that 5 seconds, since Ayaka charge attack do come out a lot slower than Keqing in comparison. Ayaka's elemental burst is very similar to the loop. It's somewhat a tornado that move forward and do continuous damage. We talked about this before, but you do damage up to 20 times in total, and then it will explode at the end to do this bloom damage. Now there's a problem with the loop, and that is there's no guarantee that you can hit every single hit. And that is somewhat true about Ayaka as well, although currently the rumor is that if your enemy is frozen, then your elemental burst can hit them very comfortably. Nonetheless, I think generally you can expect to hit 15 times, but 20 times might be on the higher end, although we don't know until we actually play Ayaka. This elemental burst also have a very high energy requirement at a 80 energy requirement, which is one of the highest in the game, similar to other characters like Eula. Similar to the Luke burst, you can probably expect Ayaka's elemental burst to be able to hit enemy within VENTI's elemental burst, which means you can surely do VENTI Ayaka pairing. With that in mind, let's consider Ayaka's team composition, which since we already established that Ayaka is better to play in the freeze team, then her team composition will look something like Ayaka and then either xingqiu or Mona for the hydro source, and then either a Diona, Rosaria, or Kaya for your cryo battery, since Ayaka do have a 80 energy cost, and then either VENTI or Kazuha or Zhongli or similar characters for a flex slot. Let's start by considering putting Ayaka into a typical Morgana team, which is Ayaka, Mona, VENTI, and finally Diona for cryo battery. Then you can probably expect a rotation look like this currently on the screen. And with that in mind, the first thing to notice is that your elemental bursts actually dominate a majority of your damage. Your elemental bursts actually dedicate about 50 to 55% of your overall damage, which is more than half and is on a 80 cost elemental burst. And surely that cannot go wrong anyhow, because not like Eula have an 80 elemental cost burst that also dominate half her damage. This is something we have to be very careful of, similar to Eula cases. In Eula cases, her damage was not the problem. The figure crafting and the math calculation justified that she has to damage. The problem of Eula of course comes from the actual gameplay, that she might have some caveat where she suffered in the actual gameplay. And of course, we cannot see any practical problem, or we cannot tell any practical problem with Ayaka just by looking at the numbers. We have to actually play Ayaka to see if she's gonna have potential energy cost issue, if she is gonna miss her burst or something like that. So something to keep in mind is that she might potentially have gameplay issues, because once again, this is a 50% of her damage locked behind a 80 energy cost elemental burst. Fortunately for us, Ayaka's elemental burst is not backloaded and does not require you to stack anything, and it's not bundled into one giant hit. Instead, it's split into multiple parts, so I expect that Ayaka will have a lot less problem, or maybe won't even have any problem with her elemental burst in comparison to Eula. Anyway, in comparison to putting Ganyu in a Morgana team where she can land about 9 icicle, 3 charge attack, and 2 elemental skill every rotation, she has about 180 motion value per second. In comparison to Ayaka's 294, or in the lower cases where you don't hit the entire elemental burst, 255, Ayaka actually end up doing 40 to 60% more damage than Ganyu in a Morgana team or in a permanent freeze team. But that is for single target. Morgana was a team that was never made for a single target to begin with, and when we compare it with 2 target, then Ganyu and Ayaka have very similar damage. In fact, Ganyu kinda overtake Ayaka right here. But if with more and more target, then Ganyu is gonna outscale Ayaka by a lot because Ganyu work exceptionally better and exponentially better with more target. Nonetheless, Ayaka being able to catch up on a 2-target environment to Ganyu is surely a good sign about Ayaka. And of course, that is not to mention that Ganyu don't really have any practical gameplay issues aside from the fact that you need to use aiming mode and use her charge attack. Ayaka have a 80 energy cost, a 20-second rotation, which in my opinion is slightly more scuffed than the 15 seconds one because Venti's elemental burst is 15 seconds cooldown, and there's some other minor gameplay issue like maybe you can't hit your entire full burst, you have to use charge attack which costs stamina, and you have to constantly dash in and out, which some people might not like because Mona dash is pretty awkward after all. Which just put Ayaka slightly below or a bit below Ganyu, which is basically into the xiaos and hutao tier. And that is a good thing because that is a sign of Ayaka being very balanced similar to other character. In fact, this is the trend we have been seeing from MiHoYo, is that almost every character released nowadays is actually really balanced. And so Ayaka being into that tier, into the very balanced tier, is actually to be very well expected coming from MiHoYo. So if Ayaka very balanced, then why do I think she is above xiao and hutao and taking the second best 5-star DPS spot? The reason is that it comes down to potential team comp that work with Ayaka and potential artifact that work with Ayaka. And in both of those cases, they are much better than the hutao and xiao. Starting off with artifact, with Ayaka being a perma-freeze type of DPS, that means she has access to the Blizzard Slayer 4 set, which is currently the most broken artifact set, and it's definitely way better than the Crimson Witch of Hell, or in xiao case, the random 2 Anemo 2 Gladiator artifact. And of course, Ayaka team are way better than xiao team or hutao team. With a xiao team, you're basically locked into playing something like xiao, Sucrose, Zhongli, and Albedo, which don't really have a really good synergies together. And in hutao team, you are doing similar thing where you have hutao, xingqiu, and then Zhongli or something. In both cases, they don't really work with character like Kazuha or Venti, which are super strong Anemo character DPS. However, in Ayaka cases, we have access to a Morgana structured team. Arguably, Ayaka even have more team option than Ganyu, because Ayaka can utilize xingqiu much better than Ganyu can, and Ganyu only option is Mona. With Mona being a standard banner character that is currently not features, that means some player might not have Mona, but almost every player have xingqiu, so that makes Ayaka slightly easier to drop a team with. Ayaka could potentially also work really well with Kazuha in comparison to Ganyu can, which is just the recent rate up. So potentially more player, especially the one that recently joined, will have Kazuha and xingqiu, and they will not have Mona and Venti. So that does mean that Ayaka win in team comp option by a lot compared to other character. And of course, one of the last thing that I hate about Ayaka is that it basically just yoink all my teammates from my Ganyu Morgana team, and it also yoinked the Diano from potentially like my Eula team, or in case you don't have Mona and you're using xingqiu instead, that it means that it also yoink your xingqiu from your other Pyro carry DPS team. And this brings us to the ultimate question, and that is, if I already have Ganyu, then do I need Ayaka? Fortunately, what you could do is that you can run Ayaka with the Morgana team on one side, and you can just run like something like the Mel Ganyu on the other side. So it is still possible to play both Ayaka and Ganyu at the same time. But ultimately, this becomes the same question as if you already have Diluc, do you really need another Pyro carry DPS character that's your xingqiu? Or extreme cases, if you already have Xiangling Giga Chat, do you really need any Pyro DPS character? And of course, the answers is going to be on you. Ultimately, it is your account, your Primo, your waifu, your boba, your Primo Gem. I don't know, what did I just say? Anyway, it's on you to make the decision if you want to pull or not. It's on you to make the decision if you think she is good or if you think she is not good. And it's on you if you think she is worth your money. Overall, I think Ayaka is going to be very excellent for all of player. Ganyu might be stronger, but a lot of people are uncomfortable playing with Ganyu aim style, like the charge attack style, and stuff, where Ayaka is probably gonna be easier to play. Probably easier to play than like hutao or xiao as well, since freeze team are very strong. They come with a lot of CC and you don't really take that much damage, where hutao and xiao literally kill yourself, so you have to manage your HP to make sure that you don't die. Anyway, thank you for coming for this pre-release analysis. I do think Ayaka is going to be a very balanced 5-star DPS characters, and of course I'll be streaming Inazuma gameplay on day 1 when the patch come out on my Twitch TV, so twitch.tv/Tenten games, and I'll see you guys all right there.